So, episode 7 of season 3 is called When the Dead Come Knocking. Not a lot of consequence happens in this episode. The main thing that we wanted to note in this episode is that. Wait, so Carl eventually names the baby
And like up to this point, he's been talking about like
Dead. Yeah,
like
he's
dead
like, oh, well, what
females,
about
like
her from the group who's dead? What
right.
about
What
her from
about
the group who's dead?
Amy? What
Yeah.
about Sophia? What
Mm-hmm.
about we could even name her Lori? Like coming up with these different like meaningful names.
Dale.
And Daryl has just been calling her a little ass kicker up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
But in this episode, like Carl pulls Rick aside and he was like, I've been thinking about what we should name her.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember my third grade teacher?
Yeah.
And he named...
And he's like, sure, Mrs. Higginbrom, or something.
Something like
that,
that, yeah.
You
And he's like, yeah, her first name was Judith.
know? Mm-hmm.
And so that's how they decide Judith's name.
Yeah. But it doesn't really, like, mean anything. I mean, okay, so it was his teacher
Right.
from, like, the year before that, like, depending on how old he is here.
Right, we're assuming he was
Yeah.
in 4th or 5th grade
When
when
the apocalypse began, and this is, like, a year later. So, like, you know, so it was, like, his teacher from, like, a couple of years ago. And it's, like... Okay, so I mean, I guess so. Like, we're supposed to think, oh, she was a really nice teacher, and like, you know, like Carl liked her, but that's it. Like, that's
like,
and it just seems like kind of a random like. Okay, I mean, I feel like they could have come up with something that made a little bit more sense. Like, he should have like, Carl should have like told a like little short story about how the teacher helped him with something, or you know what I mean, like
there should have been a
something
little more
something kind of
context.
relating to what's going on
Right,
at that moment
right.
or something.
Like she showed me I don't have to be scared.
Yeah,
or something
like
that.
something
Like,
so it kind of makes like or you know, like Carl could have said like oh, I really liked her, but then she died, but then like it helped me learn that like life goes on or
Right,
something, like I mean
right.
something, so it kind of like ties it into like
I mean,
anything that's
I
going
guess-
on in the current situation, because otherwise it's just random.
I guess we can assume that she's dead. Like,
Well, sure,
but,
yeah.
But there's like nothing significant of like.
But
It doesn't
yeah,
make sense.
they're like, yeah, it's just kind of random, and I mean, I
Yeah.
guess it's just like, just to get the name out there, but it's kind of silly, yeah. So, okay, and so then the other thing is that, I believe it's this episode where they have, where the governor has Glenn and Maggie
Yes.
captive, and
And-
he's like interrogating them and torturing
Right,
Glenn.
and Merle is torturing Glenn with like walkers and stuff like that.
Land just beating him, but
Right,
yes, but
right.
yeah, he's like throwing walkers at him, which is in kind of a strange, like, okay, so like when he threw the walker at him, I mean, I guess he's just assuming that Glenn's gonna like survive and kill it, you know, and then be more willing to talk, because he's like, I'll throw another one in there or something, because otherwise it's just like, well, okay, now
Like, you're
Glenn's
just gonna
dead,
kill
like
him,
I'm
yeah.
not sure what, you know.
Yeah.
Like, well, okay, that wasn't a great interrogation tactic because now Glenn's dead. Like, I'm not sure what the point of that was.
And then the governor goes in to talk to Maggie and
Yeah.
pretty much threatens like
He like makes
Either-
her think he's gonna rape, or yeah, makes her think that he's gonna rape her
and also
if he doesn't. Oh, what?
and says like you either take off your shirt and
Or
let me
yeah,
do
or
what I
I'll
want, or I'll
cut off
Glenn's
Glenn's hand, which is a reference to the comics because the governor cut off Rick's hand. Unlike which I think they should have done. That would have been kind of cool.
Yeah.
If Glenn,
Which
or,
we
I mean,
like.
if
We
Rick,
kind of we see something similar to that later
What do you mean?
with Negan and
Well, you mean with Carl?
yes,
Yeah,
and he's
I
like,
guess.
just cut off
yeah.
my hand.
But like that would have, again, like in the comics, there's like a lot more like back and like the governor does a lot more stuff to Rick's group, and like
Mm-hmm.
there's just a lot more like violence back and forth, and there's a lot more like reason for them to hate each other
Right.
and to like
Especially
really have this
Michonne.
like highly antagonistic relationship.
Yeah.
like and I feel like that would have like if the because in the comics the governor basically just like captures them and just like starts like like he starts brutalizing everybody really for no reason, you know, like Rick's group. And so that would have helped like sell it as being like, oh yeah, we should like Rick's group should really hate the governor's group, and
Right.
like there should really be this intense rivalry where it's not going to be resolved peacefully. And it's just it's really it's like toned down to the point where it just seems weird in the
Yeah.
TV show because like okay, in the comics the governor rapes pretty much like everybody he can get his hands on. He rapes them. He's like rape crazy. And so like with Michonne, like instead of it being Glenn and Maggie who get captured, it's Glenn and Michonne. And like the governor does, he like rapes Michonne a lot and tortures her a lot. And like I don't think Glenn actually gets tortured at all. It's like he's Maggie in that situation where like he's the one
Not much
who kind
happens
of
to
gets away
him.
like unscathed,
Yeah.
and he's just like traumatized by like having to listen to it in the other cell and that kind of thing, which is like Maggie in the show. And so it would make like with Michonne and the governor, because then later Michonne breaks out in the comics and like captures the governor without his people realizing, and like ties him up and like rapes and tortures him for a while. And so and then I think if I'm remembering correctly, it's been a little while since I've read the comics, but I think that's shortly before she kills Penny, sort of like on the TV show. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think that's yeah.
But it gives
And
it more reason,
well,
like, as to
because in
why
the
she.
show it doesn't make any sense that like I mean, okay, because like okay, the governor tried to kill Michonne. But that's it. That's like
Mm-hmm.
and then later she gives this kind of like excuse to Andrea where it's like, "Oh, well, you were
You
under
couldn't,
his
yeah, you
spell and
couldn't
I had
see
to
it.
expose him."
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, like I don't think Michonne understood as much what was going on as she made it seem, because
Yeah.
she like goes to. I mean, that's in a but like it's not like she saw the governor through the window in a previous episode with like a child that like with a bag on its head, like I mean, you know what I mean, like
Right.
through the blinds.
Right.
And so like I guess she knew something weird was going on up there, but then later it's like
She doesn't know
she seems
nearly
to
as
have
much as she
forgotten that or
thinks.
something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I feel like that's kind of a rationalization of like what's actually going on. So anyway, but like if the governor brutalized people more like in the comics, like it doesn't have to be like that ludicrous and like over the top, but if he like it would make more sense, because then like later Glenn has like a he's like really needing revenge really badly
Mm-hmm.
for like
What he
like
did to.
threatening Maggie and
Right, but
like
even
making
though.
him feel like he was powerless to protect
I
her.
mean,
And
but Maggie says all he did was like make me take my shirt
yeah,
off. Like he didn't actually do anything to Maggie. So like, I mean, I understand why Glenn's mad, but
well,
it
right,
would
but
it
like
would make
he's like
more
highly
sense.
irrational, and it would
Yes,
have made more sense if like
if the governor had have actually
if these
done
things,
something to
yeah,
her.
like these characters with their like intense need for revenge, it would make more sense if like more actually happened to kind
Mm-hmm.
of justify that like emotional need for it.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's pretty much all that happens in this. Like this is several of these episodes, like in the middle, beginning portion of season 3, are not highly eventful. They kind of stretch it out a bit.
Or like they'll have like a lot of like action stuff going on, and like
Yeah, or
and
it's
that's
yeah,
kind of it. Like.
like but like the stuff before Woodbury and Rick's group like actually start fighting, it's kind of takes a while. Like when Rick is going crazy, like it kind of takes a while.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so then episode 8 is entitled Made to Suffer, which is a reference to the comic book.
And oh, go ahead. I'm
Oh
sorry.
no, that's it. Go ahead.
So this is the episode where, like, Rick and who is it all? It's Rick,
Oscar,
Daryl,
Michonne,
Oscar, Michonne.
yeah, and
I-
Glenn. Or no, not
No,
Glenn.
not- I
well,
think
okay, you know.
It's just the four of them.
Yeah.
They go to Woodbury to try to get back Glenn and Maggie because
Yeah.
Michonne knows that Merle took them. But it's like, it's kind of weird because, like, Michonne
Do you
never
mean-
says
Oh, yeah.
never says anything about Andrea, who was like the person
Mm-hmm.
she was with for 8 months. And maybe she doesn't think that they know Andrea, but at the same time, like, her and Andrea were together for 8 months. I feel like Andrea should have said, like, oh yeah, I was with this group with Rick and Lori and Carl and Herschel, and like named,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess Herschel was dead at that point. Oh, not Herschel, sorry.
Dale.
Dale was
Oh,
at it.
yeah,
Herschel
yeah.
and Maggie, and like, I feel like that would have just come up naturally talking about this group that she was
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
with before. And so Michonne should have been like, oh, you're Rick? Like,
Yeah, no, I mean it doesn't really make very much sense.
or
yeah,
even
like
like,
she should have
even like
remembered
Lori was
like
pregnant.
one name.
Yeah, even like Lori was pregnant. So when she saw they were getting baby formula, she should have been like, oh, maybe that's for, I don't know. I just feel like that's like kind of a weird oversight that she doesn't know any of them, even though Andrea should have mentioned them, and
Yeah.
she never mentions Andrea to the group.
Oh no, it's just to like prolong the like
Suspense.
yeah,
Like,
and
you
then
knew
like
Andrea?
oh my god, like Andrea, you're
Yeah.
with them, like
Yeah.
no, it's just done to prolong that whole like oh they don't know that the other one is with the other one and the other
Yeah.
one is over yeah and it's but no I mean it doesn't make any sense, not really, that like Michonne wouldn't recognize anything about the group
Yeah.
and also wouldn't say like what reason does she have not to mention Andrea, and you know no it's a bit silly so I just okay I think it's like, okay, so Rick sets off to go, like, rescue Glenn and Maggie at any cost, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, like, yes, you should go in and rescue them. But I feel like he's being short-sighted about, like, he's just taking Michonne's word about all of this.
Yes.
Like, he doesn't even, did Michonne mention anything about Merle? I don't think so.
No, I don't. I mean, I think she said like there was a man that took them,
Yeah,
but I don't
like,
think
they
she
don't know
mentioned-
that it's
they
Merle?
don't know it's Merle.
And so it's like, okay, so this total stranger who they allegedly don't trust, Michonne, you know, at this point, like she said, "Oh, it's this town that has like a pretty boy, smooth talking leader who's like Jim Jones, who was like a cult leader, and like paramilitary and stuff like that." So like that's all we hear to like explain. So it's like okay, so like not to be trusted, dangerous, but like Rick, you're just trusting that Michonne is telling the truth
Yes.
about that. It's not that damning to begin with. I feel like she could have like made it sound worse and been honest, like, oh yeah, like they tried to kill, you know,
Right.
like they're doing this thing, they tried to kill me. Like, it just seems because then Rick and his group like go in and they just start like killing people and they just start, you know, shooting everything, and they're very like gung ho about it. And well, okay, that's smart. You're just making an enemy there. It just he doesn't even seem to question whether that's the correct thing to do.
Right.
Like, okay, why not be a little bit more stealthy about it?
Mm-hmm.
Why not take people from Woodbury hostage and trade them or something? Like
That's a
why
good
like
point.
before the governor knows that you're onto him,
Yeah.
like why not wait and like take some of his people, like watch and wait and see who he values, like try to take Martinez or what's his name, like Stumpke or something, like the black guy with the crossbow. But anyway, like some of his lieutenants, you know, like take some hostages of your own and then say, hey, look, we'll trade them, you know, we'll trade them. Something, it just seems like something rather than just, but of course Rick doesn't think anything through. He's just like, oh yeah, let's, because he knows that this is like a force that outweighs his own.
Right.
He knows that there are way more people there and they have more resources, but he's like, oh sure, we'll just shoot the place up and
Yeah.
make an enemy out of them. And I mean, sure, they're right there on our back door. But
Right, they're
this
very
this won't
close.
this can't possibly turn into a problem later on. But it's just it's just a bit like much of what Rick does. It's short-sighted and he just shoots first and it doesn't think about what he's actually doing in the long term.
So while they are like sneaking into Woodbury to get Glenn and Maggie, back at the prison, there's another group that finds the prison and goes through like the hole in the fence. And this group is Tyrese and Sasha, and then they have, I think, 3 more people with them.
Yeah.
And they like get into the prison and some walkers are attacking them, and Carl's like, I gotta go save them, and Herschel's like, I can't allow that. And he's like, my dad would do it though.
Yeah.
And so he runs and he like gets them into a safe place. And so at the prison, it's just Carol, Axel, Herschel, Beth, Carl, and Judith at this point. And so this is like, they really don't have, like, Carl's a good shot, but they don't have a lot of defenses. So it was kind of stupid for Carl to just like bring this group in that he didn't know. But I guess they're trying to show that like he still has like the good in him that Lori wanted him to have.
Yeah.
At Woodbury though, like when they're fighting and everything, they do get Glenn and Maggie, and Oscar dies in the process.
Of course.
And because Tyrese was introduced.
It's so obvious that this is what they were doing.
They introduce Oscar and T-Dog dies.
Uh-huh.
We have Oscar for like 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Then we introduce Tyrese and Oscar dies.
Immediately
it's like
dies,
they could only have one big black guy.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous.
They have to have a quota, and there cannot be any more or any less at any point.
Exactly. It's like apparently having more than one black guy on the show at a time would be, would like overload the universe or something and like cause it to implode. Yeah. Which I think, and I mean, not to, like it's, let's see, it is this episode where Axel dies also. Or no, the next one. But yeah, okay. But the next one, and it's like, I think they should have kept those 2 a little longer anyway. Because I thought those were kind of good characters.
Yeah.
Like, it's this issue I have with The Walking Dead where, like, the, like, lower tier characters, they just kill them off so casually and so quickly.
Yeah.
And like they just like, it's like, okay, it's like a weird measure of human life in the story where like nobody really cares that much. And it's like, oh, only if you're like in this like tight-knit group does your life like fully matter.
Yeah.
And otherwise you're just like an expendable pawn for Rick's twisted schemes. And it's just like, ugh. But anyway.
So talking about Axel, actually, at the beginning of the episode, he's talking with Carol, and
what you mean, like after he was kind of like moving in on Beth while Carl watches?
Yeah,
He's
he
like,
was
hello,
awkwardly
girly.
flirty with Beth, which is
it's
gross.
Like, how old are you? And she's like, 17. And he's like, 17? How interesting. Well, like curling his mustache? Yeah.
So then he decides to go for Carol, who's a little more age appropriate.
A little bit. I mean, in the opposite direction. No, I don't know. No, probably not. But like, anyway, yeah.
But he does ask if she's a lesbian.
Yeah, he's like, well, but you're a lesbian, right? So I can't hit on you. Yeah.
And this is actually a reference to the
Supposedly.
comic book. Yeah, supposedly a reference to the comic book where, like, Carol kissed Lori.
Yeah. But yeah, she was like a totally different character in the comics. It was pretty weird because she, let's see. Okay. I'm trying to remember. I don't think there was like a huge character thing where like her husband was abusive or anything like that. From what I'm remembering, I don't think that was like a big deal. Like it is on the where that's like one of her character defining things is that she was all like abused and like beaten down, but then eventually became a badass.
And she never lost her daughter.
That's true.
Like,
yeah,
Sophia
yeah.
lived.
Yeah, that's kind of weird that it's the opposite. Like,
Yeah.
where, like, Carol died, but Sophia lived.
Right. Well, and
Um,
like Sophia dying is a big character trait for her. Like
it is, yeah.
she like
Well,
grows
also,
a lot from
like,
that.
she gets
Every child
everybody
she had,
killed.
yeah.
Like, pretty much, man, did she even give Ezekiel cancer much later? Like, somehow, just by, like, being in proximity with him?
So yeah,
It
later
feels,
on they
feels
give
like
her
everybody who's, like, connected to her dies.
they give her like surrogate children
Uh-huh.
basically, and
And it always ends
all
badly.
of them die.
It's ridiculous,
It's like,
yeah.
it's so sad for Carol. Like
Yeah.
she's so motherly, but like all of them die.
Yeah, she just needs to stop because it's like it's not like they're gonna die tragically. Stop like getting involved with them.
Okay, but so Carol
You're
in
right.
the comic.
She's like insane basically. She's like really unstable and cuz like after Tyrese joins their group, which is earlier than on the TV show, like she hooks up with him and has like a little relationship with him for a while, but then once Michonne joins their group, Tyrese just like dumps her and switches to Michonne, and then like Carol goes nuts over that, and so then she's like suicidal for a while, and so then Lori is like trying to like keep her alive and like trying to take care of her and like like keeping her nearby so, like to try to like keep an eye on her and do like a suicide watch and be nice to her, but then Carol like
Misreads
Carol,
the signs.
yeah, Carol being insane is like, oh, why don't we become sister wives to Rick? Like, why don't we have like this like three-way relationship and we can all just be
It can be a
happy and
throuple.
yeah, and then Laurie's like, wait, what? Like, and gets really freaked out by that, because Carol and like I think that's when Carol kisses her. Maybe that was a little earlier, but yeah. So basically, Carol is like really unstable and like just trying to like she can't handle rejection by any of these people, and then she does kill herself.
Because she got rejected by
Lori, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so geez, it's weird. Like especially compared to the TV series version. Like there's basically nothing connecting those characters other than like having Sophia, I guess. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
It's weird.
So back at Woodbury, they got Glenn and Maggie out, and Michonne kind of went off on her own and went to the governor's apartment. I think
bachelor
looking,
pad, yeah.
I think looking for him.
Yeah.
And that's when she found like all the fish tanks with the walker heads in them, and she hears like snarling and growl, or she hears noises. It's not snarling and growling.
That's something. Okay, so because later she says to Andrea, like, I went back to Woodbury and like to expose him for what he is, right? So she's like, but what we actually see is that she's just in his bachelor pad, like just kind of sitting there. So like, was she just waiting to kill him?
I think so.
I mean, that's how it looks. But and it's only after she hears like noises
Right.
coming from his like walker room
Right.
that she actually goes to investigate. Like it doesn't seem like she's like really digging around
Right.
and like trying to find anything. So it's like, did she just forget about the like seeing him with Penny through the blinds before?
She must have.
Because like it doesn't seem like she's actually there to like try to dig up like physical evidence on him or anything. It seems like she's just there like to kill him.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, great. Yeah, great, Michonne. Great. Like if you just killed him, that's totally gonna like convince Andrea that you're the good guy there. Like if you just assassinate him, like okay, how is that going to expose anything? Michonne's not real. I don't think she's really like thinking any of this
No.
through in a particularly intelligent way this whole time. And of course it does, it does backfire on her with Andrea.
Yeah, because like she hears like moving around, and
Yeah.
so she like opens
She
the
goes
gate,
in,
and of
finds
course,
the-
right,
Yeah.
and of course, like Penny like goes to the front because she's a walker. She's trying to get to a human.
Yeah.
And Michonne just sees like this girl whose like arms are like
In a straight
in a
jacket.
straight jacket and
like
this
a
bag
bag.
over her head,
Yeah.
and she's like, "Oh my gosh, poor baby child," and she like she instead of taking the bag off of her head.
Yeah, because she's like leashed to the wall,
Right,
and it's
right.
like But of course, she does. She like, and I mean, she has plenty of time to like to
Uh-huh.
just rip the bag off.
Right.
Like
She like
this,
takes
there's
her
like 40
time.
seconds, but before she like, yeah, and it's like, hey, maybe take the freaking bag off her head and see what's going on
Right.
here. Like, because gosh, let's see, what's in these aquariums?
Right.
Oh, walker head.
Walkers.
Maybe this is
Yeah.
his walker room. Like,
And
it just seems a bit like, but of course she undoes the leash.
she undoes the leash and then takes the
And
bag
then
off, and then
yeah.
she's like, "Oh
And
my
then she's
god, it's
like,
a walker!"
"What? It's a
And
walker?"
she's like super dramatic about like going
She like
behind
turns
Penny.
yeah, she like turns her around and unsheathes
Mm-hmm.
her sword, like, yeah, instead of
And
just like quickly neutralizing her. Yeah.
and that's when the governor shows up. He's
Yeah.
like, "No!" And he has
Yeah.
his gun raised, and then he like puts it down to be like non-threatening. He's
Like,
like,
takes off his gun belt and
"Uh-huh,
he's like, "Hey,
yeah,
please don't do this."
right,
Like,
right."
she's my little girl, like,
And Michonne just being
yeah.
like,
Like really, really impulsive and dumb and short-sighted, like just stabs her through the brain.
right,
And it's like, how about like, gosh, I don't know, how about using her as a hostage?
Uh-huh.
Like, because he obviously would do whatever you
whatever
want.
to save
Like,
Penny.
so how about like forcing him to let all of you guys safely out of town? Like, and send Andrea back with you?
Yeah.
How about like doing something sensible, and then Andrea would see that he's like got like a zombified child there,
Right.
and like the aquariums and stuff, like it's just, but like, and I mean, okay, I feel like this would make more sense if Michonne and the governor had more reason to be like such bitter enemies, like the whole like rape torture thing, like both ways, like in the comics. Like, I feel like, because then it would be like, oh, she like really wants to hurt him. You know what I mean? Like, and that would make more sense to like justify how impulsive she's being. But of course not. And so then she stabs Penny, and then he loses it, and then they start fighting and like bashing each other against the fish tanks, and they're like
Right.
rolling around, and like he's gonna like feed her to a walker head, and then she grabs some glass and stabs him in the eye, which was in the comics. This was like when Michonne had the governor hostage, captive, and like was raping him. She was like sodomizing him with a spoon, and then scooped his eyeball out with said spoon.
Which is gross.
Yes. Well, I mean, obviously they're not going to show that on
Right, right.
But like, what if this was an HBO show or something?
That
They
would
might
be
have.
intense, yeah.
Yeah. And so she stabs him in the eye with the broken glass, and then this is pretty like, I think she's about to kill him, and then that's when Andrea comes in.
Yeah, and
Uh-huh.
so it's like gun against sword, and they're like kind of doing a showdown, like and Michonne ends up getting away, and Andrea runs to the governor's side
Yeah.
to help him. And Michonne slips out of the town, which the rest of the group was already out except for Daryl, because Daryl got he was held hostage,
Yeah.
basically. And Rick's like, "Where were you?" Like, he's kind of noticing, like, realizing now that he was short-sighted.
Oh, okay, about Michonne.
Yes, yes. So the governor at this point thought that Michonne was dead, because that's what Merle told him. That like they killed her, they had her head, they had her sword, but like two other
Yeah.
guys that were on like the research team to like go kill her, they got killed by other walkers, so like they lost those things. And so he knows that Merle has lied at this point, and he's gonna make Merle pay for it.
Yeah.
And so he like gets the whole town together, and he's like basically having like a rally, and he's like, terrible things happened, but it's because we have a traitor among us, and we captured his brother, and we see Merle and Daryl together in like their arena type setting. And
Yeah.
you made like a really good
Thank
observation
you.
that when the governor starts giving his speech, his eye patch that they put on him, which is just like
It's just like gauze.
it's like gauze, and then it's like tied to his head with more like bandages. Is like totally white, totally clean, and as he starts going like further and further into his speech, we see blood like pooling at the bottom of the gauze.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely from like his blood pressure rising.
Yeah, he's getting himself worked up with the
Yeah.
speech, and he's like getting more, more excited by everything. Yeah, and it's increasingly like blood is coming out of his wound. Yeah, and then later we see it sort of like dribbling past the eye patch.
Yeah,
and,
it's a really cool.
It's
effect.
nice. It's like it's a good like detail. It's good.
I think
like,
that's really good writing
yeah.
and detail and continuity. So during all of Woodbury, there's like a lot of gunfire, a lot of explosions, a lot of stuff going on. So it's kind of hard to keep track.
Right.
But
it's very dark and shadowy.
Yeah. There were 2 people that we could confirm that Rick
without a
killed.
doubt.
Yes.
Yeah.
There were probably more people that he killed that we just couldn't confirm because he's just like firing out into like,
and we don't know if they're wounded or
Right,
dead or
right.
yeah, he's just firing and
right.
Yeah.
So there are 2 confirmed kills, human kills for Rick. So this takes his count up to 6 right now.
Yeah. Excellent.